Hi, Steve again. Hopefully you saw me last time and know a little bit more about Greek wine and the history than you did last time. So I'm not going to dwell on the history, but I think obviously people think of Greece as being a very historic wine producing country, which it is. I mean, with history going back to the third millennium BC with the Minoans. But in terms of winemaking, I think as we see them now, it's a really young country. And I think with a couple of the wineries, well, all of the wineries I'm going to talk about tonight, these are seen as some of the early adopters of modern Greek wine. But when I go through, you'll see that the dates that they were actually established are really very recent. So it's an ancient country with a great history, over 300 indigenous varieties, but it is a really modern, vibrant industry. The wineries in Greece are probably the newest in the whole of Europe. They have benefited by being in the European Union and taking advantage, quite rightly, of the grants that are available for rural development. So the wineries state of the art. The winemakers are all incredibly well educated. They've studied, most of them have studied abroad, a lot of them in France, but they've also done stages and worked in Australia, New Zealand, places like this. So incredibly well educated young winemakers, generally speaking, with access to really great old ancient varieties. Now, the first wine we're going to talk about tonight is from Drama, and you can see my pointer there. Drama, which is a great name for a town, and Drama is what is a point in an example. Basically, there's history of winemaking in Drama for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries, way back to the ancient times. Then, during the Ottoman time, which is 1453 to 1821, there was nothing. There were no vineyards. Pretty much for 400 years, there were no vineyards in this area. And the area was sort of devoted to other fruits. Serres, which you can see there, is a big fruit growing area. And there wasn't anything there. But then a couple of enterprising brothers decided that they would create a state-of-the-art winery with a combination of Greek and what should I say, classical or French grapes. Now these guys had a lot of money. They were called the Lazarini brothers, Nico and Costa, and they made their money in marble. This area of Drama is known for its marble, and its marble is in world demand. So these guys used their fortune to create an amazing winery. And so this put Drama on the map, and it was a new area for wine. So it's a PGI, it's not a DPO, and the government allowed the import of French grapes, so Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon, and they use them in combination with some Greek varieties. So those two guys were the pioneers of the region. They fell out, like as brothers do, I think, and they set up two wineries, Costa Lazaridis, which created an amazingly successful brand called Amyndeo, which actually, just to go off on a total tangent, I had for my wedding wine. That was back in 1999. And that was a Sauvignon Certico blend. And then Nico Lazaridis on the other side made some very more classical, more French-styled wines. So they put the area on the map, and at the same time, other people. This was in the late 80s, if you like. Other people started investing. Pavlidis in the area, who's another marble magnate, and also the Manolesakis family. And this takes us to the first red wine, which, as you can see, I've chilled it because it's been a bit warm out here today. So and it's a perfect wine for a chill. So Manolesakis, they planted their vineyards back in the late 80s, and they planted, as I said before, a combination of classical Greek grapes and also classical French grapes. But the wine I'm talking about tonight is actually 2 classical Greek grapes, which I find far more interesting. In fact, on average, in Greece, 90% of all the grapes are indigenous Greek, and only 10% are foreign, if you like. So this is a good example. So, as I say, so this is up in Drama, and it's a very light wine. This is 2 Greek grapes, 55% of Xinomavro and 45% Limnio. Now, Xinomavro, if you speak any Greek, Moscow is Moscato. It's a Moscato clone, but the Mavro, or the red or the black version. So it's a black Muscat, but it's not to be confused with the Muscat Hamburg. It's a black Muscat clone, which is from this area. It's from the north of Greece, around around Macedonia, and it's, as you can imagine from the name, it's very aromatic. It's got more of a sort of rose petal kind of element to it, also a touch of strawberries. It's also then blended with Limnio, and Limnio is an interesting grape. It was the first grape variety ever given a name check. People like Hesiod mentioned it, and Herodotus and these guys gave it a name check, and it was the first grape variety ever to get a name check, if you like. So that they mentioned the Limnio, or the wine from Lemnos, which where it originally came from a northern Greek island called Lemnos, which is it's one of these guys here, I think. But anyway, not great on total geography. Anyway, so the beauty of this grape, so you've got this very aromatic light Xinomavro, and then you've got Limnio, which gives light-colored wines, but with lots of personality, and it gives lots of flavors of laurel and these sort of herbal elements, and it's really elegant. It's a really elegant, really interesting grape, and I think it's going to be one of the Greek reds to watch. I think more and more people are planting it. It's an ancient variety, as I said. And it used to be used to make the original sort of red wines of Mount Athos, to be honest, the monks' wines. And it's been grown in Karas again, which I mentioned last time for the whites, but they have Limnio and make good examples of Limnio. But more and more producers are using it. So, as I say, this is a relatively small estate, Manolesakis. The climate in this area is pretty cool. It's not continental, but heading towards it. It's not getting any influence from the ocean. It's quite high altitude. The soils are mainly clay, but with some limestone as well, which you'll see limestone in most parts of Greece. So what it is and what it does is make something which is totally not what you'd expect to come from Greece. It's a really light, fragrant wine. It's kind of like a weird cross between Pinot Noir, Valpolicella, these kind of flavors, maybe with a little bit of a light Loire red thrown in, with this Limnio, that sort of bay leaf, sort of herbal element. But I think it's really super wine. It's got lots of character, lots of flavor, lots of strawberries, but not high tannins, and it's definitely not sweet. It's a dry wine. It's very dry. You'd think from the nose it's going to have a little sweetness, but it doesn't. It's really dry, really interesting. And on the palate, you really get that sort of laurel leaf kind of dryness almost. This needs food. It's not a sit in the garden in the summer sipping it kind of wine. It's got a bit of bite to it, but I think it's really quite intriguing wine, and it's quite mesmerizing because it's quite grippy. It's not quite as grippy as say a Barolo wine like that, but it's definitely got some grip. So really, really interesting wine, I think, as a starter, and very atypical of what you'd expect from Greece. It shows you that the climate is quite cool, and if you're using grapes that have grown in this area for a long time, they adapt really well. So you don't get a heavy heat imprint with this wine.
So very interesting grapes, Steve.
Yeah, no, really good, I think.
Do they often use those two varietals for single varietal wines, or is it normally just for blends?
I've never seen a pure Moscow Mavro, but there are pure Limnio, more and more pure Limnio coming through. Yes, definitely. I think it's, as I said, it's one of the red grapes from Greece to watch. I think it's going to get more widely planted.
Yeah. Do they plant it much across Greece, or is it normally just in the north?
It's just originally just in the north, as I say, in the area around the Halkidiki area, and also in this northern area of Macedonia. This is the area that it comes from originally. So yeah, but I think it will spread. There's no doubt, and it's spreading more and more in this region as well. There's not a lot of area under hectare of it at all. It's a very rare grape still, but people like it, and it's becoming more widely planted. Yeah, it doesn't even rank in the top wines in terms of acreage. It's obviously less than 1% of the acreage of Greece. It's very small amounts.
Definitely a dark horse of Greek red varietals.
A light red horse, I think. Yeah,
Not such a dark horse, no.
maybe not. But yeah, it's good. So now, okay, so where are we going to go? So Gaia, that's Notios white. That's not good. Even the picture. Never mind. We're not doing that. So we just done that. That was drama, as I say. And then we're going to go back to. I'm going to do Gaia, but it's a deliberate error there. It's a red, not the white. So
just to deceive you all.
Okay, so we're going to the south now. So this is the Peloponnese. So and this is a winery that was set up by Yanni Paraskevopoulos and Leon Karatsoulos, and they're both amongst the sort of the front runners in terms of modern Greek wine. Leon is a viticulturalist, and Yanni the winemaker, and they have set up the winery in 89. Was it? No, 90. 89, 90. I think it was. It was slightly after the Santorini winery. 97, that's right. 97. So, as I say, these are relatively recent wineries, if you like, in the great scheme of things. When I was at Obbins, I was just getting into Greek wine in the late 90s, and these guys were just starting up. So that's how modern it was. There weren't many people before them. So Gaia have set up in Koutsi, which is in the Peloponnese. Peloponnese, for those of you who haven't been, is amazing. It's a beautiful area of the country. It's the old ancient Arcadia, if you like. So if you could imagine a very sort of beautiful, slightly more mountainous, unspoilt, less manicured version of Tuscany, then you're kind of coming towards certainly this area around the north, around where Gaia are, around Koutsi, this area which used to be in ancient times known as Arcadia. So it's also a historic wine growing area. Originally the wine of Nemea was called the blood of Hercules. And it's the area that he was supposed to have killed the lion of Nemea. So it's a very ancient area. It's very beautiful, rolling hills with mountains in the background. It's relatively warm in the summers, really cold in the winters. But what they've got is altitude. The drama before it isn't very high. It's normally about 200-300 meters above sea level. This area can get much higher, up to 700, even 900 meters above sea level, where they're growing grapes. So it's a little bit more extreme in that respect. It does have a nasty tendency, especially recently, to rain at the harvest, which is something that the Bordelais know all about. And also in Nemea, they're beginning to get a little bit more used to it. And the Peloponnese in general is probably the biggest wine production area of Greece. And it's, even though Greece is primarily white wine growing, this is a really, really important area for red. And the red of this area is called Agyorgitiko, which is easy for me to say, but is a bit of a tongue twister. And Agyorgitiko, or St. George as some people call it, is one of it actually is probably the most important red grape of Greece. It's probably the most widely planted. It is the most widely planted. And in terms of its style, it's a kind of nice and easy to love style of wine, basically. The Agyorgitiko can produce good fruit, even at high crops, which a lot of the sort of lesser priced wines which are produced on the valley floor, they can get big crops and decent wine out of it. So it's quite malleable in that respect. It is a little bit sensitive to things like powdery and downy mildew. It doesn't like to get too heat stressed either, but it's a pretty good grape. It gives soft tannins. It gives lots of fruit. In terms of fruit, it's on the red spectrum, I would say. I like to think of it as very much on the sort of dark red cherries, black cherry kind of element, with some other softer red fruits in there as well, maybe a touch of strawberry as well. But it's very malleable. You can make rosé out of it, a really good pale rosé with a real beautiful lifted strawberry element, or you can make some pretty big, gutsy Tuscan look-alike wines, basically. Yanni, who makes this wine, sort of likens it to Sangiovese in its respect, and I can see where he's coming from. I think it's kind of a bit like a theoretical cross between a Barbera and a Grenache, to be honest. It has this lovely juicy fruit, but then it has a nice lifted acidity as well. It has that kind of flavor profile. And this is Gaia's entry-level red, pretty much. This is Notios, which means it comes from the south, certainly from the south of Greece in the Peloponnese. It's grown, as I say, in this village called Koutsi, which is probably the best wine village in the whole Nemea appellation. It's altitude. It's not on the valley floor. It's on the sides of the hills. And some of the vineyards are up to 700 meters, certainly between 500 and 700 meters. It produces beautifully aromatic Agyorgitiko. It can be a bit jammy on the floor, but here it's lifted, very aromatic, very well balanced, good acidity, really good. It's grown on limestone. Again, limestone is, as I said, very prevalent in Greece, so that limestone helps with the acidity. And on the nose, it's kind of a bit like a Black Forest Gatto, if you like, and it just got this lovely sort of ripe, soaked cherries, and then just on the finish, there's a little bit of Syrah in this blend, and then you just get that sort of peppery, black fruit coming from the Syrah. So it's a really clever blend. In terms of drinking, I think it's if you think of a really good I don't know, Cru Beaujolais. It's a little bit like that, but it's not. There's no carbonic maceration with it. It's a standard soak and press, but it's just really great and takes a chill brilliantly well. Yeah, really nice. Good tannin. Yeah.
Sorry. Agyorgitiko, I just wanted to have a go at saying it. Would you say it's more of a food wine or one you can drink by itself?
Well, this one slightly chilled. Is the softer approach to it, and you can drink it chilled on its own. As I say, it's a little bit Cru Beaujolais meets a good Barbera. It's got a bit more grip than a Beaujolais. It's got that sort of Barbera-like grip just on the finish, that sort of dry finish. So you get this lovely soft fruit to begin with, but then it just finishes dry. So could drink it on its own, but brilliant with food and brilliant with Mediterranean flavors like, sort of tapenade and lots of tomatoes and things like that. And also great when it's chilled with salmon and tuna. So it's really versatile and I think a really great introduction to Agiotico. But as I say, Agiotico can go from pink to really big, age-worthy, very serious reds. And the thing about this area is it's just getting into its stride because, to be honest, the winemaking in Greece is brilliant, and the winemakers are really good guys, and the vitis are good as well. Leon's a great viticulturist, don't get me wrong, but the issue they've had is bad plant material. They haven't really looked into the vineyards that much, but now they're looking into the vineyards. What they identified was that Agiotico, all of the clones that they had, and pretty much all of the stuff in the ground had virus, which wasn't helping to get the best results. And after really extensive research, they finally, in the last, I think, 3 years, 2017, I think, put non-virus Agiotico into the ground for the first time. And I think the potential is enormous. I mean, this stuff, even after 3 years, is beginning to show its worth, and I think there's going to be a quantum leap in quality. I mean, the quality is already really good in Nemea, but I think it's going to go to another level.
Mm. Is it the most widely planted red grape?
Yes. Yeah.
Planted all across the country.
Yeah, it's about 5% of the 5 or 6% of the land grapes is Agiotico, and it started off in the Peloponnese, but now there are people like Vivliahora making up in Kavala. They have Agiotico. Costa Lazaridis has Agiotico. More and more people are planting it elsewhere. It's one of the classic Greek red grapes, and it's very malleable and very user friendly. There's very few people I know that could take offence at an Agiotico. It's a really good introduction to Greek red wine.
The main stumbling block is just pronouncing it.
Yeah.
Looking at the word and then working how to pronounce it from that.
This is the problem with Greek. Once you start on the wrong emphasis, then you're doomed. So you just have to keep practicing. But Agiotico.
Agiotico.
Yeah.
You said it's quite a versatile grape, so it can make different styles, from lighter styles to much bigger styles.
Yeah.
Is that down to whereabouts it's grown in the country, or is it the winemaking?
Yeah, I mean, on the valley floor, it tends to be hotter down there, and the yields tend to be higher. So you're going to go for a juicy, maybe slightly alcoholic red, but good drinking all the same. Up in areas like Kutsi and up in the elevated areas, you're going to get more structure, better balance of phenolics and fruit, and yes, and lower yields basically. So it's a matter of moderating the yield very often, and also seeking out the cooler areas so you get more refinement, if you like, rather than just big jammy flavors, which Agiotico can certainly give you, but you want to be in a higher elevation if you want more perfume, which is what you've got here. It's really, really perfumed. Really, I like this wine. It's good wine.
It is a lovely wine.
And good value.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. I'll let you move on to the next one. Thanks, Steve.
Right, move on. Right. So we're going to move on from the most planted red grape to the second most planted, pretty much. Well, actually, maybe third. I think there's Liatico in Crete is also very widely planted, but Xinomavro is the grape of the north, if you like. So this was the grape of the south. Let's get on to the next. Yeah. So, but now we're back up into the north. So you can see there's Thessaloniki here, and then we've got Alpha Estate over here in an area called Amyndeo. You also have Nausa around here somewhere. So this is the north, and the grape of the north is Xinomavro. Xino means acidic, and Mavro black. So it's the black acidic grape, and it lives up to its name in many ways. I think Xinomavro is it's not related. The DNA is totally different. But if you were to liken it to anything, it would be Nebbiolo. So it gives you generally, unless you really know how to work it and get it ripe enough and work the skins, it tends to always give relatively pale colours. But as you can see here, this isn't pale, although it's still not like a Cabernet colour. It's still got that lighter rim to it. So to me, it's very much like Nebbiolo. It's got very prominent tannins. It's definitely, it does have lots of fruit, but it's not fruit driven. It's not got those sort of black currant fruit, black cherries and black currants and whatever. It's certainly more on the red side. And the wines age incredibly well. It also has really high acidity. So where we're going here is an area called Amyndeo, and Amyndeo is, as you can see, it's right there. It's an area which is a high plateau. It's on average, it's between 600 and 700 meters above sea level. It's a high plateau with lakes. And this is about as close as you get to a continental climate in Greece. And it's right up on the borders of, up here is, this is Northern Macedonia as it's called now, the former Yugoslavian Republic of, as it used to be called, Northern Macedonia. And then over here you've got Albania. So it's really up on the far end, and it's very different. The Peloponnese is mountainous and rugged and sort of looks like Tuscany. This has rolling sort of hills, if you like, and more mountainous towards the west, but rolling hills, and quite an extreme climate, more continental, slightly moderated by the lakes. As you can see, this is Alpha Estate at the bottom here, and this is a local lake, which moderates the temperatures somewhat. In terms of soils, it's sandy, so not a great place for phylloxera. Phylloxera doesn't like sand, it likes clay. And if you have less than 5% clay, you don't get phylloxera. So pretty much a lot of pre-phylloxera, or well, certainly one block of pre-phylloxera in this estate, but sandy soils with limestone subsoil. And this is cold. This is winemaking at the extreme. This is the coldest part of Greece for growing grapes, basically. So this is right at the extreme. So really good for white wines like Sauvignon Blanc, and proving itself really good for Xinomavro. So as I said, Xinomavro is known in the north, in Nausa, in Gumenissa, and in Amyndeo. It's the prime grape, and it makes really intriguing wines. Alpha Estate was set up in '97 by a grape grower who'd been growing grapes in the region for a long time, Marco Mavridis, and had access to some of the best plots. And also, he's still a relatively young man, but in those days he was a very young man, probably one of the most gifted winemakers in Greece, and I know quite a few of them, and they are really gifted. A guy called Angelos Iatridis, who studied in Bordeaux, did lots of consultancies around the world and traveled around the world to find out exactly what people were doing, and then set up this amazing project in 1997. And to say that it's probably the most impressive winery and vineyard setup I've ever seen is not an understatement. It is incredibly impressive. Angelos is I don't think you'll mind me saying this, a control freak, and he wants to control everything. And he's a very gifted winemaker. but he just wants to understand what's happening, and he wants to be in control. So he's invested literally millions of pounds in the winery and the setup. They have an irrigation system that is controlled by drone. They take infrared photos of each individual vine, and then they work out when to give it nutrients or water. And they work on a sort of deficit drip irrigation system. So they keep the vines stressed all the time, but just on the point of stress, not too stressed, and don't give them too much. And they control vine by vine, basically. So they're totally in control there. The winery has got everything that you could possibly want to make wine, and it's impeccable. I mean, and Angelos is a very skilled winemaker as well. So he's pushing Xinomavro as far as you can go in terms of getting optimum ripeness, which is often a real problem when you're so far north, and also balance of fruit and extract. He does cold soaks to get this kind of level of color, because normally a Xino could almost be, it would be like looking at a Barolo or a Barbaresco or a Pinot Noir in terms of the color, but this has certainly got some extract. This is a single vineyard offering from Alpha. It's not their top old vine offering, but it's great value. It comes from a 9.5 hectare plot. It's sandy soil with limestone subsoil. It's cropped low. They keep the crop quite low. It's certainly it's around 35 hectolitres a hectare. It's aged for 12 months in Allier oak. Before that, it spends quite a long time on its skins to get this extraction. It then also spends all of that time in oak on its lees, and then it's treated very gently. They try to minimize any form of mechanical manipulation in terms of pumping and things in the winery, and it's just incredibly well-made red wine, and it has such an exotic nose. It's sort of, wow, how do you describe it? It has definitely tobacco, definitely tobacco. It has a touch of really, really, really sweet red pepper. This area, which the main town is called Florina, is known for the best red peppers in Greece, and it's some of the best red peppers I've ever had in my life, and it has a touch of that red pepper element to it. It's then got this really exotic, almost creme de framboise element as well. So it's got creme de framboise, it's got tobacco, it's got really sort of sweet red pepper, and also a bit of sun-dried tomato, that sort of sun-dried tomato element. So it's got all these savory elements, and as well as this sort of framboise kind of element. So it's really, really intriguing nose. The oak isn't overpowering at all. It's there, but it's not really oaky. So this is the 2013. So it's had 7 years to soften, and it's drinking beautifully now. It's got a lovely, you expect it to be sort of really grippy and bites you, but it doesn't. It's really soft and silky and long, intense, and it finishes. You don't get a feeling of tannin on the finish. You get this beautiful lifted acidity and very silky tannins on. It's taken time. When it was a little younger, it was still a little grippy, but at this moment it's drinking beautifully well, and the tannins have softened out beautifully. As I say, just silky tannins now, but it's still got a long way ahead of it. And as I said, this is Alpha's entry level wine. They're I see them certainly in the north of Greece in what Marco and Angelos are doing. Is they kind of are very much like the Angelo Gaia of northern Greece in terms of pushing it to see just how far they can take Xinomavro and other varieties that they're doing. I mean, it's absolute quest for quality. As I say, they didn't set the winery up until '97, and so it's still a young operation. So, and the vineyards are getting, apart from the Babayanis vineyard, which is a 100-something-year-old vineyard, the vineyards are getting older, and every year that the vineyards get older, they're producing more interesting and more intense wines. So I think the potential here is enormous. So really exciting wine.
I know the wines are, the alpha wines are all outstanding, both the reds and the whites.
And the rosés.
And the rosés, quite
The thing
right.
about Xinomavro is you can make rosé from it, and good rosé as well.
Yeah.
So, as you would be able to have Pinot Noir, or I don't think anyone's ever, well, Nebbiolo rosé, I suppose so. Yeah.
Clearly the attention to detail pays off.
Yeah.
You said that the Xinomavro ages well. Would you say that all Xinomavro would age well? The Ayurvedico would age well as well?
Not all Ayurvedico would age well. Some of them on the valley floor are meant to be drunk relatively young. But if it's made well, yes, from a good producer, it will age incredibly well. And I've seen wines from Yanni, from Gaia estate, again, you can't say really old because these guys have only been making wine many years. But I've seen wines from the early vintages and really impressive. And here with Alpha, you can't say, but across the road in Nausa, they've got a longer pedigree. And some of the old Butari Nausas were great. And that was before they really got a handle on how to handle Xinomavro. So it's a little bit like in Barolo. I mean, it's like when the likes of Verwurtzio and people in Barolo came around and started inventing like the new Barolo. This is what these guys are doing now. So I think the wines are going to be better and better than they've ever been, and they will age incredibly well. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I've tasted the oldest wines that Alpha have got, and they're still babies. They're showing very little age at all.
Sounds like the best is yet to come from them.
Definitely. I mean, I think maybe in 20 years I probably won't be around, but I think people will probably class Xinomavro in this area and also Nausa as certainly an equivalent and on the same level as Barolo. I think the potential is enormous. Yeah.
I see this one's called the Hedgehog Vineyard, and they've got another wine called from the Turtles Vineyard. You know where they get the names from? These vineyards?
Well, it's quite simple, really. I mean, this vineyard,
first animal that crosses.
Well, this vineyard, actually, the Hedgehog Vineyard, is where it would appear that the hedgehogs like to go and breed in the spring. So it's full of spiky little fellas getting it on in the spring. Apparently, the hedgehog and the turtles. There's lots of sort of tortoises in this area, just sort of strolling around. So yeah, named after the wildlife.
Alpha Estates Nature Reserve.
Exactly. Yeah.
Does Xinomavro produce different styles of Xinomavro depending on where it's grown in Greece? Because obviously a lot of attention to detail up at Alpha.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, this is a deep, dark beast, and this is very much typical of Alpha. But if you go to Nausa, the colours are a little lighter, definitely. And if you go to a more traditionalist, they'll be even lighter still. But if you go to a modernist like Thimiopoulos, he gets good colour extraction as well. But I think that the colours will be a little bit lighter than in Amyndeo. Yeah, it depends on the producer and depends on the terroir and what the producer wants to do. You can, if you know what you're doing, you can get everything from a white wine from Xinomavro and a sparkling wine to really not super dark red, but that's about as dark as Xinomavro gets, but pretty dark.
Yeah, again, it's a very versatile grape.
Yeah.
Would you, speaking more holistically about Greece, would you say it's more renowned for red or white wine worldwide?
Definitely white at the moment. I mean, most of the grapes, of the 300 grapes, are white. most of the acreage is white, to be honest. And the whites have taken a leap forward in quality more than the reds did, because I think it was Yanni who was telling me once. He said the way to make great whites, or relatively good whites, quickly is technology. So once you've got the technology in place, if you don't have technology, you make terrible white wines. And it doesn't matter what your vineyard gives you, but if you've got technology, you can make decent and good white wines. Red wines, you can make decent red wine wherever. You don't need the technology. But to make great red wine, you need to get in the vineyard. And it's only now that I think the Greeks are getting into the vineyard, certainly on the whites and on the reds. And as I said, I think the fact in Nemea that they only realized that they've got virus in most of the vineyards, and they've now addressed it. So that you'll see a quantum leap there. And I think with Xinomavro, there are different clones of Xinomavro, and they're beginning to understand how they fit, and where they fit, and what they do, and how they respond. So I think, the red wines will get better and better and better. The whites have already made that in the last 25 years. The whites have gone from nowhere to really world-class white wines very quickly. And I think the reds are on that trajectory now, but maybe 10 years behind on that trajectory, but beginning to show really real promise. And as they're finding new grapes to work with, if you only have two grapes, Xinomavro and Agoritico, which they don't, but if they only had two, it becomes quite boring. So, but they're actually developing other really interesting reds as well now. So I think the red growing will become more interesting, if you like, and the red wines of Greece will become, I think, a lot more interesting in the next few years as well.
Just a matter of time.
Yeah, but they're making some great reds now. Don't get me wrong, they're making some great reds now. But I think there'll be more and more, and the great reds will be even better in a few years' time.
Yeah. Do you think there's any yet undiscovered regions of Greece that are to produce red wine?
Bound to be, yeah. I mean, there's Greece is just one big mountainous mass, really. There's about 1% of the land mass is the coastal area, which is relatively flat. Most of it is mountainous. So I'm sure there's some great terroir. I mean, there's limestone throughout Greece. Wherever you've got limestone, you've got a sporting chance of making something decent, I think. So yeah, I think it's only just starting. I think that, they're just identifying what they've already got in the vineyards, and what's good and what's not good, and what could be good if it was somewhere else, kind of thing. And I think the next 20 years of Greek wine is going to be so exciting. It's a shame I probably won't be here to see it.
Yes, you will. You'll be introducing people over here to new ones in 20 years.
Yeah. But no, I think really exciting. Greece is, as I said at the beginning, it's a modern, ancient wine producing area, and that's what's so exciting about it. It's just going to get better.
Do you think that things like climate change are having any impact on grape growth?
Yeah, no, it is. It's getting warmer. As I say, it's beginning to start raining on the vintage in Nemea, which it didn't do before, which again is the other side of climate change. Wetter in certain areas, and the vintages seem to be edging slightly forward in terms of timing. So yeah, it is. But the thing about Greece is that it's had great varieties that have had, in some case, millennia, I would imagine, but certainly centuries to adapt and develop and get used to where they are. It's not like taking a Chardonnay or a Cabernet and just shoving it in there and saying, get on with this. These things have had a chance to develop over the year, and there's always a natural selection in everything. So if these great varieties have survived under these conditions, those are the ones that are best suited, and they're beginning to realize that. And so, as I said, there are wines here that can retain acidity. Xinomavro has got bags of acidity, natural acidity, and so in a warm climate, bring it on. It loves it.
Extremely resilient.
Historically, it's been a bit too cool, so it may be maybe all right now.
Yeah, maybe I love it.
Yeah,
One last question. I see you've got a yellow donkey T-shirt on.
I do. Yeah,
What's a yellow donkey? It's not
yeah.
another vineyard and Alpha, is it?
It's well, it's a brewery I'm involved in. It's a beer of Santorini, basically, and I'm one of the owners. So a bit of advertising. So great beer when you're out there. So hopefully, well, Greece at the moment is one of the few places one can go. So
Yeah, and it doesn't just produce good wine, good
yeah,
beer too.
good beer now. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you
Okay.
very much for your time tonight, Steve. Clearly, there's quite a future for Greek red wine ahead.
Yeah. Well, Greece is the word, as they say.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for joining tonight.
Yamas.
Yeah,
Bye.
man. Night.